I've been looking forward to. We are joined now by Dr. Todd Boyd, aka the Notorious Ph.D., who joins us to discuss this brilliant and beautiful text about the legacy of hip hop. It's called Rappers Deluxe: How Hip Hop Made the World. This is radio, so you really can't see this. Maybe those of you who are watching right now can actually see this. But it is, I've rarely seen a book that is more gorgeous. I mean, in terms of just the aesthetic of it, the way it's laid out, the photos, the graphics, the creative treatment that this book has been given makes you want to just sit with it for a while. When I first got it, I just sat for a couple hours just going through it because it's laid out so beautifully, so majestically that it makes you want to spend some time with it. And that's before you even get into the story that Todd Boyd is telling in the book. It's been far too long, Professor Boyd. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. Thank you for the kind words.
No, it's good to hear your voice, and glad to have you on the program. You heard me describing the book as I see it, and why it is so arresting to sort of to flip through. Tell me about the book, and I don't mean the actual storyline. We'll get into that about how hip hop made the world. But tell me about the book. I assume you're pleased with it, the layout, the design. Just talk to me about your involvement and engagement with how this thing was going to look. Because if you're talking about the impact of hip hop, you better come with something, and you did.
Well, thank you very much, Tavis. The way you described it is exactly the kind of feeling I was hoping that people would get when they picked it up. It's visual as well as textual. And so when I started putting it together, I actually began by, selecting and curating all the photos and, later wrote everything. But also in the process, a cat by the name of Hassan Rahim, 1201, was involved in terms of the design and the layout and the conversations we had. I told him what I wanted was an experience, something that you could think about, but also something you could feel and look at and, talk about. And I just wanted a book to try to capture as much of hip-hop's energy as possible over the last 50 years. And a big part of that to me was, how it looked. So, we looked at some of the old flyers, party flyers that people would use back in the late 70s and early 80s. And we looked at some album covers, and we had a real engaged, creative conversation. And, somebody has described the book as a status symbol.
Mm.
I remember, growing up, there would be times when there was an album I liked, and I would carry the album around, and I knew other people who did the same thing. So it was more than just the music on it. It was, the album cover, the liner notes, and I was really just trying to create that same sort of feeling. So when you looked at it, you could engage it. When you read it, you can engage it. I just wanted to hit at all those levels, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. It looks good on the shelf. It looks good in people's hands, and that's what I was going for.
Well, you succeeded wildly. It is quite the treatment that you have given the book, and it pulls you in and makes you want to go through it. I wish this were a platform where I could just hold it up and show the world all the pieces of it, but they will get it for themselves. It's called Rappers Deluxe: How Hip Hop Made the World. As I said, you will rarely find a book that is more beautiful than this. I've been thinking for a couple of days now about how I want to have this conversation, and I'm obviously going to follow you. You're the guest. I'm just trying to pose some smart questions. But I think one of the ways and we'll get at it a number of ways, but one of the things I do want to do is just move through this thing, because it occurred to me as I was going through it that if you just flip the pages, the questions pop out at you. You just flip pages and you got a conversation. So, for example, I am on a page right now that features a photo on the cover of Newsweek on June 29, 1992, of Sister Soldier, and the cover says "Rap and Race: Beyond Sister Soldier, the New Politics of Pop Music." You recall that moment?
I recall it vividly. I had actually just moved to L.A., and this was, of course, right after the riots in '92. And, in that section of the book, for people who don't have it, that's also the same period of time when Bill Clinton, as a presidential candidate, went on the Arsenio Hall show and played the saxophone. People remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't remember is that, Bill Clinton also went to a meeting in which Jesse Jackson is sitting next to him, Rainbow Coalition, and he compared Sister Souljah to the Ku Klux Klan. And of course, since that time, people in politics, as you know, use this phrase, a Sister Souljah moment, which is supposed to be a time when a politician kind of openly, goes against or criticizes someone of their same party.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been institutionalized in conversation about politics going forward. What I wanted to point out to people was here was this image of Bill Clinton on Arsenio Hall, which, everyone seemed to, at the time, applaud. I mean, we were not used to seeing presidential candidates on a show like Arsenio Hall, and certainly George H.W. Bush and Ross Perot didn't appear on Arsenio Hall. Bill Clinton did.
Yeah.
And that helped to, I think, connect him with popular culture. And also, he was, of course, someone who, at the time, was thought to be connected to black culture in certain ways that benefited him in the election and throughout his presidency. But I just wanted to point out the fact that part of the sleight of hand, if you will, was making that appearance, but at the same time denigrating Sister Souljah and comparing her to the Ku Klux Klan, which is, ridiculous on many levels. But that was that moment, and that's why that cover is so important.
No, it is important. If one could see the book, well, let me just do this. I'll describe it when we come back. You see the picture of Souljah on the cover of Newsweek on one side of the page. On the other side, there are two photos, one of Clinton playing the sax next to Arsenio, and the other of Bill Clinton at the podium, Jesse Jackson sitting next to him. And if you can see the look on Jesse's face in this photo, if you can see the look on Jesse's face as Bill Clinton is basically spanking them in real time, it's arresting. More with Todd Boyd when we come forward.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Made fresh daily in the Merck Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
The queen is hyped up. Hey, the queen is hyped up. People have been trying to get fierce on me. I think it's time I tell them about themselves. Yo, just give it to them safari style. Well, it's the LA, the TI, the FAHUCY, the QEE, and is the reason I must be myself. What else? Well, fame hasn't got me. Souped up, selling out, sloppy or poppy. There's so much to live for. Therefore, here's more from a woman. All women, keep your rumors to yourself. The overblown, homegrown, non-known fools who never shown proof, let alone own a lot. The props over.
So Todd Boyd, we talked about Sister Soldier a moment ago, but I'm flipping through this book in real time, obviously. And I'm looking at all the photos of the various women in this genre over these 50 now plus years. And I don't want to color the question much more than that, but talk to me about, as we're talking about your book, Rappers Deluxe, how hip-hop made the world, how women helped to make hip-hop over this 50-plus year journey.
Well, you know, one of the key moments in the book talks about Sylvia Robinson, who is, you know, the godmother of hip-hop. Sylvia was a, you know, R&B singer who performed as Sylvia. Prior to that, performed with a duo called Mickey and Sylvia. There's a famous moment in Martin Scorsese's film Casino when Mickey and Sylvia's song Love is Strange is used. But, of course, Sylvia started Sugar Hill Records, and it was her desire to capture the experience of hip-hop, which was still, you know, only in New York at the time. She wanted to capture that experience on record, and, of course, the record that would emerge from that would be Rapper's Delight, which is what I'm obviously riffing on with the title of the book, Rapper's Deluxe. You know, so I think when we tell the history of hip-hop, like, it starts with Sylvia and her contribution and the importance of Sugar Hill Records and taking something that was an experience in New York and putting it in a form so that people all over the country and subsequently people all over the world could hear it and engage it. And, of course, you know, you were playing, you know, Queen Latifah. There's this period, you know, in the 80s, you get Roxanne, Shantae, you get Queen Latifah, you get MC Lyte, Rage, Moni Love, these sort of early pioneers in terms of women's rappers, and later, you know, figures like Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown and others. And so women have always had a place in hip-hop. And, of course, the conversation about women in hip-hop has always been one that I think has been contested. But the point is, you know, hip-hop, I see it as a cultural form that really gave voice to the voiceless. And so whether that be, you know, young black men from the street, whether that be black women, whoever that may be, I think, you know, hip-hop has benefited from having women and issues from a woman's perspective articulated as part of the overall conversation. And, I mean, I think if you bring it up to the present, you know, some of the most visible artists these days are women, and they're having a moment considering the long history of hip-hop. But I wanted to talk about Sylvia and Queen Latifah, Soulja, like, to me, all these, Missy Elliott. I mean, there's so many figures we talk about in the book as having contributed to this and adding that perspective to the overall conversation.
Yeah. Again, this is fun for me because I'm flipping through this book literally as we speak, and I'm just flowing with the book that you've laid out for us, Rappers Deluxe. I'm at a page right now, and this the book because it's your book, but there's a full page spread. I'm looking at it right now, full page spread of Puff, Sean Combs stepping out of this Mercedes in a full-length white fur coat, donning his sunglasses, but the coolest photo ever of Mr. Combs. And I don't need to color the question much more because I'm going to Kanye next. There's a whole section in the book of photos on Puff. There's a whole section in the book of photos on Kanye. It's a beautiful thing. Let me just say this, it's a beautiful thing. To look at all these photos. I was laughing, having written a few books myself, as you know. I was laughing at the rights issues you must have encountered getting all these photos in one book. That's a journey. Licensing photos and content is a journey unto itself. So my hat's off to Todd Boyd just for getting all this stuff cleared to get in this book. But to look back at all of these old photos of Puff and all these old photos of Biggie and all these old photos of Kanye. I mean, it's an amazing, it's a beautiful, beautiful book that really does get at how hip hop made the world and this legacy of this genre. But anyway, all that said, I'm just gonna throw names at you and you respond how you want, given the moment that we find ourselves in. But I'm looking at these pictures in this spread of Sean Combs, Professor Boyd.
Well, I should begin by shouting out the team at Fight On, the publisher, because they did an excellent job in clearing all those photos and handling that aspect of it. And as you point out, that was not easy, and the book is filled with photos. But this is what they do, and they do a great job. And so that's why it was wonderful for me to be able to collaborate with them on this project. That said, when I was finishing up the book, so this would have been end of 2022, early 2023, was right at this moment when Kanye, if I were to quote my mother, started acting a fool. And I'm trying to finish my book, but what he's doing, I can't ignore it. I have to deal with that. And so, I end up talking about Kanye, and, you talk about Kanye's contributions. You also talk about, in the book, and I also talk about those things about Kanye that were problematic. And I think, fortunately, the book was finished before now because I would have to do the same thing with Puff. But, throughout the history of hip-hop, there's been all sorts of controversy. There have been figures associated with, various accusations, crime in some cases. That's part of the culture. It's always been part of the culture. I think it's interesting when you have individuals like Kanye or like Puff who made some very obvious contributions, major contributions to the culture. But in terms of their own views or their personal life, there are things that you have to deal with also, and that's the unpleasant part of it. But in order to keep it real, you can't ignore that. You have to talk about it. So what I like to think about is, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because all of that is hip-hop. Hip-hop's not been perfect and pristine. It's also not been all negative and, full of crime and violence. So trying to balance out those things where you're honest about an individual and what they've done, but I feel like at the same time, that shouldn't dictate everything you do.
Yeah.
You want to include that, you want to acknowledge that, but you also want to talk about, what this culture has meant beyond that and not reduce it just to those issues. But it's a challenge. It was a challenge, and I hope I achieved the right balance.
It does raise the question, though, Professor Todd Boyd, about how, to your mind, hip hop has survived these controversies, because they've not been, I was gonna say few and far between, but they've been a little bit more frequent than few and far between, and yet it has hip hop, that is, has survived the controversies. Put another way, it has survived some pretty torrential headwinds. There have been all sorts of people. I mean politicians on down. I'm thinking of Tipper Gore. I'm thinking of other persons whose names come to mind right now. But there's been an onslaught, just a feverish attempt on the part of some people to smack down this particular genre. So they've survived the smackdown attempts. They've survived the headwinds. They've survived the controversies. How has this genre, which is now hegemonic around the world, done that so successfully?
I think that's why I can write a book of 50 years, because part of hip-hop's strength has been overcoming those challenges in a variety of forms. You know, if you go back to the 80s, I don't know how many people in the 80s thought we'd be sitting here having this conversation now. This was the era of someone like, Tipper Gore, for instance. This moment in the early 90s I talk about in the book, when Luke and the 2 Live crew were being arrested on stage and charged with obscenity. We could talk about the legal cases involving sampling music and having to credit artists and that sort of. There have been court challenges, not to mention, individuals encountering difficulties and going to court for a variety of reasons. But those individual episodes have never, in total, equated to hip-hop. There are moments in hip-hop. Hip-hop has always been bigger than any one individual. It's bigger than one lawsuit, or bigger than one criminal case. So all of those things have happened, but hip-hop has continued to move forward. If it were only linked to one or two individuals or one or two cases or one or two historical moments, it wouldn't have survived. But I think to look at the 50-year history, 50-plus year history now, is to recognize there have been some moments when there have been challenges, but the culture has consistently grown beyond those challenges, survived those challenges, and been about more than just those challenges. Even though there are some people who would like to reduce it to those challenges, it's always been bigger than that.
There's a section in the book, I've got about 2 minutes here now. We'll start here, Todd Boyd, and continue when we come forward. Again, just going through this gorgeously laid out book called Rappers Deluxe, How Hip Hop Made the World. Its author is the Notorious Ph.D., Todd Boyd at USC. There's a section in the book, and the header is a small part of the reason the president is black. And there's a whole section in here of photographs and commentary about the connection between the first black president, Barack Obama, and hip-hop. Say briefly a word about that.
Well, that line is, of course, from a Jay-Z song. The idea being, of course, in the late 2000s, when Barack Obama was running for president, it was maybe the first time, maybe not the first time, but in that way, that you had a presidential candidate who was openly embraced by the culture. And, you get this in, songs like Jeezy's My President is Black, for instance, a line like the one from Jay-Z that I quote. And, Obama at one moment talking about his critics and brushing his shoulders off, which, of course, references another Jay-Z song. And so the whole point was how hip-hop culture helped to elect a president, and how what hip-hop had done relative to popular culture helped to kind of set the table for the election of the nation's first black president. And then subsequently, after he was elected, the way in which hip-hop would be represented in the White House during that time. And so it's a real interesting moment where we can see the influence of hip-hop on politics, and politics at the highest level.
There is a great section in the book, and actually sections, I say section, there is a dedicated section to it, but all throughout the book, what you cannot ignore is the impact, the relationship between hip-hop and fashion. We will talk about that part when we come forward. Hip-hop and fashion. The book is called Rappers Deluxe, How Hip-Hop Made the World. How Hip-Hop Made the World. Its author is Todd Boyd, who's our guest right now, and I'm glad about it on Tavis Smiley.
It's bigger than hip-hop, One thing about music, when it hit, you feel no pain. White folks say it controls your brain.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former D.C. Mayor Vincent Gray is thanking George Washington University for awarding him an honorary doctorate in public service. Gray posted a picture of himself on stage in a wheelchair being honored by the university on social media. Gray studied psychology at the university and graduated in 1964. He was the first African American to be admitted to the GW fraternity system. Dozens of tornadoes could be possible throughout the day today and into tonight, particularly across Iowa and into northwest Illinois and southwest Wisconsin. It's part of a severe weather outbreak forecast across the plains and Midwest, bringing the risk of dangerous thunderstorms from northern Missouri into Wisconsin. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and VINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lakers fans may not like what they're about to hear, but I need to warn you about something. There are NBA sources everywhere who believe former Clippers guard J.J. Redick is emerging as the frontrunner for the Lakers head coaching vacancy. J.J. Redick, the guy you occasionally see on ESPN working as an NBA analyst. Redick has never coached in high school, college, or the pros. He got into broadcasting after retiring in 2021. So how is Redick a candidate for one of the most prestigious jobs in sports? 2 months ago, Redick started hosting a podcast with LeBron James called Mind the Game. It's a chat where Redick and LeBron talk about the X's and O's of basketball. This podcast and Redick's association with LeBron is the only reason Redick's name is connected to the Lakers coaching search. Stay tuned on this situation. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I spray and scrub, but the soap scum in my bathtub is still there.
I spray and scrub, but the burnt sauce on my stovetop sticks around.
Sprays can leave grime behind, but new Mr. Clean Ultra Foamy Magic Eraser combines the scrubbing power of an eraser with the cleaning power of Dawn to melt away tough messes on contact.
Just wet, squeeze, and erase.
Stop spraying, start erasing, and clean with more magic than ever with new Ultra Foamy Magic Eraser.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Ever since you was a pee-wee down by my knee with a wee-wee, we been Gucci cool all through school, you and me, G. Back in the days, we played practical jokes on. Everybody smoked with they locs and they yokes on. All through high school, girls by the dozens, saying we cousins, knowing that we wasn't. But like the old saying goes, time goes on and everybody grows. Grew apart,
He's Tupac, I'm Tavis, and he's Todd. Tupac, Tavis, and Todd doing our thing as we celebrate the book Rappers Deluxe, How Hip-Hop Made the World by the Notorious Ph.D. and Todd Boyd out of USC. Beautiful book, and we've been flipping through it and just talking about it. It's one of those fun interviews. You just flip through pictures and stories and start throwing questions out. It is, you said earlier, Todd Boyd, and you're right, of course, that hip-hop is bigger than any one particular artist. It's bigger than these controversies that these artists find themselves in. No controversies greater than the ones involving Tupac and Biggie. We'll get to Biggie in a second. But again, while the genre is bigger than any one particular artist, the impact that these two brothers had on the art form is clearly undeniable. We'll start with Tupac, sir.
Well, in the 90s, of course, and, looking at the book, the 90s, the chapter on the 90s, the book is broken up into decades. Mm-hmm. And the chapter on the 90s is the longest chapter and honestly was the hardest to write because there's so many things happened in that transformative decade. And, of course, unfortunately, we lost Tupac and we lost Biggie in that decade. Nas has this line where he says rap became a version of Malcolm and Martin. And I recognize, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Tupac and Biggie are obviously different. But I think for the culture in the 90s, at this moment when it had just expanded exponentially, it's also marked by, these tragic losses of these two really inspirational figures Being in L.A., like the sort of energy of Tupac, the way people feel about Tupac, Tupac's impact on the culture is something that you still feel to this day. It's unfortunate that we had to lose two individuals, but I think at the same time, we have to recognize that, again, this is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation so many years later, is the culture got so big that it ended up taking two people's lives. And it says to us that it was bigger than just the music. A lot of people think about rap music. What I wanted to convey was this was always bigger than just the music. It reached a point where, it started touching people in places we never want to happen, but it happened, and that's part of his history. But hip-hop didn't die after that. Those individuals, unfortunately, did. The culture did not. The culture kept moving forward, and I think the way the culture respects and reveres both of those individuals, speaks to, again, the substance of it over all this time. And Pac, you just mentioned Pac's name, and you get, a flood of emotional responses about the impact that he had, and, Biggie as well.
Yeah. It may, I hear some Biggie in my ear, my headphones right now. It might have been the most difficult decade to write about, as you said. It is certainly the longest decade in terms of treatment in the book. But as a student of this, as one who has talked for decades now, rather brilliantly about this art form, how sad is it when you're putting together a book like this and you get to that 90s period when you have to reflect on the death of Pac and Biggie? What's that do to you as the author, as the person who's curating all this storyline for us?
It's hard because, it didn't make sense at the time, and it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Imagine if, Pac and Big had lived, what impact they could have had in hip-hop and beyond. I often say to people, I feel like if Tupac had lived, I think his impact would have been maybe more as an actor even than it was as a rapper, and as substantial as a rapper. Mm-hmm. But his skills as an actor in the films that he appeared in during that time, you can just imagine where that could have gone, the direction that could have taken. And so, also somebody like Big and just the love that so many people have, spread love is the Brooklyn way. Like, you just think about what these cats could have contributed if they had the opportunity to live. It was sad when it happened. It was unfortunate when it happened. It's still sad, and it's still unfortunate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you look at that decade and you just think about where hip-hop had been in the 80s and where it was coming to in the 90s, in some ways those deaths speak to just the impact that hip-hop has had on our culture, and also the way in which hip-hop is so intricately tied into our culture. So that point about Malcolm and Martin speaks to how people felt towards those two individuals when they were lost in the 60s.
Yeah.
That's still sad. That's still unfortunate. Imagine what they could have done had they lived. I think it's comparable when we talk about Tupac and Biggie, obviously recognizing the difference in them, but at the same time, for generations of people who lost those figures, we often think about what could have been and just, how precious life is because, there's no guarantee. And so we've had individuals lost at various times, but the culture continued to go forward. And hopefully the culture got stronger after that, even though those are obviously some very tragic and unfortunate events.
To your point, there's Martin and Malcolm, there's Pac and Big, and now there's Kendrick and Drake. I ain't got to color that much more. Some people, to use your words, some people are saddened by this present day real time beef, and others are tickled by it. How should we view, to your mind, how should we view this Kendrick Drake moment?
Well, one of the things that comes up in the book is the history of rap beefs, even beyond, Big and Tupac. And I don't want to give my age away too much, but it's not a secret. I mean, honestly, for me, this contemporary example of Drake and Kendrick Lamar, I guess I've seen so many rap beefs for so long. To think about this in this moment we're in with the internet and social media, when you can, drop a record like 4 hours after somebody dissed you on it. I kind of feel like back in the day, the amount of time it took to create a record and put it on an album, it had gone through a process. This, to me, feels kind of rushed. Honestly, I still don't really know what started it. I don't know if anybody does. It seems like a lot of people are very invested in it. I think for me, I remember when LL Cool J and Kool Moe Dee were beefing, or, MC Shan and KRS-One, when Ice Cube left NWA. I mean, all of these beefs been around for a long time. We can even go back to jazz, when musicians would have these contests called cutting sessions. Mm-hmm. The idea was, quote, I cut your head. So we've always had that competition. Obviously, we've seen it in basketball as well, which is based on competition. So I think it's like this, based on your generation, these things are going to have maybe more or less meaning to you. You and I can talk about these old school beefs because we lived it, we witnessed it. I think for somebody who has come about later, since those things have passed, I feel like people wanted to kind of recreate their own version of it as opposed to letting it happen organically. No, that's, to me, is what feels like the difference.
No, fair enough. I receive that. It is let me ask this question when we come forward. I'll pose it now, and Todd can answer it when we come forward. And that is whether or not this current beef between Kendrick and Drake at this moment is good or not for hip-hop. And maybe that's putting too much on it. And if it is, trust me, Todd will tell me that. He ain't shy about holding his tongue. If I'm putting too much on it, he'll just tell me. But is it good or bad for the art form right now? And then we'll talk when we come forward about hip-hop and fashion. We'll talk about hip-hop in Hollywood. We'll talk about hip-hop in sports. It's all covered in this book, celebrating how hip-hop made the world. The book is called Rappers Deluxe. Its author, Todd Boyd, the Notorious Ph.D., is our guest right now on Tavis Smiley.
Started from the bottom, now the whole team here. Started from the bottom, now we here. From the Mert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Notorious, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising at KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you black.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
Yeah, yo, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and the Notorious Ph.D, Todd Boyd, author of the new book Rappers Deluxe, How Hip Hop Made the World. I'm watching my clock, Todd Boyd. We got to start doing a round robin round of quick questions because there's so much stuff in this book, man, that we haven't gotten to. I knew I couldn't do justice to it even in a 1 hour conversation, but some other things I want to throw at you right quick. Let me ask you right quick, though, with regard to Kendrick and Drake, whether or not this current beef is good for the genre, or am I just putting too much on even asking that question?
I don't think you're putting too much on it. I mean, you know, beef is part of the history of the culture, but we have to remember hip-hop is 50-plus years old now. This is not the first beef. There's nothing new about this. So I think it's important to think about it as part of, you know, an example of beefs over time, but I don't think it moves the needle in terms of hip-hop's overall culture because, you know, we're talking 50 years of history as opposed to just, you know, the last few weeks.
Yep. Tell me quickly about the impact. Again, it's undeniable in the book. You see it on every page. But the intersection of hip-hop and fashion.
Well, you know, again, as I said earlier, I was always of the mind that hip-hop was bigger than just music. And so at some point it becomes a lifestyle, and a component to lifestyle is fashion, you know, style literally. And so, you know, I mean, from the days in the 1980s of Dapper Dan through all of the, you know, hip-hop oriented fashion labels that started to emerge in the 1990s to the point, you know, we're at now where hip-hop is associated with Paris Fashion Week and the Met Gala, fashion at the highest level, prominent, you know, luxury brand names. Hip-hop has always had its own influence on fashion and style in multiple ways. And so I think to do a book about hip-hop and not acknowledge that and how that's changed and grown and evolved over time would be leaving out a significant point. You know, so to that extent, I think the fashion connection is something that has been there for a long time and has changed and evolved as the culture has changed and evolved.
We'll talk about hip-hop and Hollywood, hip-hop and sports, and maybe even hip-hop and faith, if I have time when we come forward in our remaining moments with Todd Boyd.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hi, this is Quentin. A little thing I love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips are how satisfying they are. The chicken strips are amazing. They're always filling, crispy, tender, and juicy. Definitely one of my favorite things on the menu. Especially when you add in that Chick-fil-A sauce. Always the perfect combination. And then personally, you know me, I'm getting a 4-count. I want as much chicken as possible. I'm that guy. Whenever I get them, whether it be lunch or for dinner, in my household, it's always a winner.
Order the chicken strips on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customer paid for their testimonial.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Todd Boyd coming your way right now. I've only got 3 minutes left with Todd Boyd in this conversation that I've enjoyed immensely. There's some beautiful sections in this book about the undeniable, again, impact that hip-hop has had on Hollywood, on sports. I'm looking now at a section with a bunch of great photos from Training Day and Denzel. I'm looking at all kinds of photos of athletes hanging out with hip-hop artists and hip-hop artists at all kinds of sporting events. Those connections are undeniable as well, are they not, Todd Boyd?
Yes, sir. I mean, hip-hop started as music, but it quickly encompassed sports, particularly basketball, as well as film. I'm referencing, for instance, songs in the book like, a song about basketball even before Curtis Blow's basketball in the 1980s. So that's always been a very strong connection, of course, the place that basketball assumes in the culture. And when you talk about Hollywood, in the late 80s, early 90s, and over time in the 2000s, you mentioned Denzel and Training Day, which grows out of L.A. culture and, figures like Snoop and Dre appearing in the film, the number of rappers who have become actors, Ice Cube, Will Smith, Queen Latifah, so many. So hip-hop reached into places like sports and film early on, and that's part of what has made it such a profound influence, is that it transcended the boundaries of music and started to affect popular culture across the board.
Yep. I'm thinking very quickly about hip-hop and faith. I'm thinking specifically of the Brother Minister and hip-hop's embrace of him and all the artists that have shouted him out, and the artists I've seen in his space and he in their space. Say a quick word about hip-hop and faith.
Well, again, going back to the 80s, we saw so many rappers. You played Rakim earlier in the show, connecting with the 5% Nation of Islam and incorporating elements from the 5% Nation into their music, the reverence that hip-hop has always had for Malcolm X. You mentioned the connection with, Minister Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, and the role that the Nation of Islam has played in black culture from the 1950s forward. This has always been a component of hip-hop as well, in addition to, the prominence of people wearing what were known as a Jesus piece in terms of the popularity of jewelry. Kanye, of course, making songs about, like, faith. So that's always been, I think, a part of people's personal expression and a part of the culture in various ways as well.
Yeah, it is, as I said multiple times in this conversation, one of the most handsome books I have ever seen, and I think you'll be impressed with it when you get it. It's called Rappers Deluxe, How Hip-Hop Made the World. The story told in this book, in between all these photos, is quite arresting. Its author is the Notorious Ph.D., Dr. Todd Boyd, who I've been honored to have had on this program. Wish I had more time, Todd Boyd, but I've enjoyed this immensely. Congrats on the book, and thanks for your time, sir.
I have enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me, sir.
Good to have you on. Just like that, 3 hours gone, poof, back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until tomorrow, thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former D.C. Mayor Vincent Gray is thanking George Washington University for awarding him an honorary doctorate in public service. Gray posted a picture of himself on stage in a wheelchair being honored by the university on social media. Gray studied psychology at the university and graduated in 1964. He was the first African American to be admitted to the GW fraternity system. Dozens of